Welcome in. You didn't find this by accident. This is the Whisper Lounge, a soft space for the conversations we weren't supposed to have. While you're here, you can leave a tip using the captivate.fm link in the show bio. And if you're ready, your complimentary 7-day exploration journal is waiting. Just head to whisperlounge.club/join to claim it and be one of the first to step inside to explore. Have you ever noticed that the very thing that draws people to you, makes you magnetic, is a lot of times the same thing that gets you stuck? Like, for instance, I am the queen chameleon. I can adapt. I am very flexible and adapting. And if I'm not careful, what I've realized is that ability to adapt and be a chameleon, as it were, makes me disappear and I become invisible. Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Whisper Lounge. In the last episode, we talked about erotic archetypes. So those were the patterns and roles we tend to fall into once desire, as it were, is already alive. But it's not what turns us on. It's how we show up when we're there. And if you listen to that episode, you might have recognized yourself immediately. You might have maybe felt seen or maybe a little exposed. For me, what the archetypes have done for me, and again, I created them to kind of help myself process things. And so now I'm just sharing them with you all to see if it helps you the same way it helps me. So for me, what I hope you got out of this last episode, or what you're getting out of these episodes about the archetypes, is maybe feeling seen, but I hope you're getting out of it that you're actually feeling seen by yourself. For me, it gave me so much more vocabulary and language to understand who I am and what I like. And what's the number one principle in relationships? Know thyself. If you can know yourself, take care of yourself, you're going to have amazing relationships. And amazing relationships are very important. And the other thing you're going to have is pleasure and desire, which is also very important. So today, we're going to go one layer deeper with the erotic archetypes. Because every archetype, every strength, has a shadow. And I want to spend just a minute talking about what I mean when I say shadow, because this word is used a lot today. It's very trendy. Maybe it can be misunderstood. If you listen to the first few episodes, we talked about non-duality, and I most likely will come back to that often. The idea of non-duality is that, you can't have one thing without the other. So how do we even really talk about one opposite at a time? How is that even possible? How can I talk about light and not talk about darkness? Because if there was no darkness, I wouldn't see light. Like, it's so intertwined, the two opposites. And so we as human beings have these paradoxes, these beautiful, intimate, integrated things within us, just like the rest of the universe has. So when I talk about shadow, I'm not talking about something bad. I'm not talking about something broken. And I'm not talking about something that I have to get rid of or that you have to get rid of. A shadow, for me, and in this context, is what happens when a strength maybe gets overused, or when there's something about you that's unexamined or driven by fear instead of choice. That's a big one. If it's driven by fear instead of choice. If it's unexamined, then the result is that you're operating on autopilot, on default, and you're almost taking the choice away from yourself. It's just happening and you're not doing it intentionally. So overused, unexamined, driven by fear, these are ways that shadows show up, or the shadow side of our strengths show up. Shadows form when we're trying to stay safe, oftentimes when we're trying to protect ourselves. When we learned at some point that this is how I get love, or this is how I avoid being hurt. So if you hear yourself in any of this today, the goal is, per usual, the whole foundational concept of Whisper Lounge is the goal is not to judge. The goal is awareness, because awareness is what turns those automatic patterns into options, into choice, and into intentionality. One of the reasons sexual confusion can feel so heavy is because we tend to judge our shadows instead of understanding them. So we're creating a lot of shame for ourselves. We think, why do I disappear? Why don't my partners enjoy themselves with me? Why do I feel selfish right now? Why do I want too much? Why do I shut down when things get emotional? Or why do I need control to feel safe? And instead of being curious about it, we bring shame in because we start judging those thoughts. But shadows, like we just said, are not flaws. They're literally part of the same thing. They're part of the thing that makes you amazing and great and wonderful and loving. So when we notice the shadows, we can treat them like signals. They're showing you where desire and protection got tangled together. And what is protection? Protection is fear-based by definition. So let's walk through the erotic archetypes again, but this time we're going to do it through the lens of their shadows. And as you listen, I want you to notice, is this something I recognize? Is this something I've lived? Or maybe is this something that once or still protects me? Okay, so the giver. The shadow of the giver is disappearing. Givers are incredible at attunement. They notice breath, they notice shifts, they feel alive when someone else is unraveling. One of their erotic presences in sex is to bring someone else pleasure. So whether that's bringing someone else to orgasm or watching someone else be in ecstasy or that sort of thing, that's what the giver is. So they feel alive when someone else is unraveling. But when the giver is operating from shadow instead of choice, they stop asking themselves what they want. They give instead of risking being seen. They offer, but then they don't ask. They might anticipate instead of just receiving something. And often, very often, this is developed early, just like a lot of our sexual tendencies, which again is another reason why we should talk about this stuff. We're developing these sexual tendencies before we're even quote unquote allowed or quote unquote it's appropriate to talk about sex. How backwards is that? Maybe being useful at some point in our lives meant being loved. Maybe being needed felt safer than just being wanted. Maybe receiving once came with strings, expectations, or disappointment. So you don't like receiving anymore, if that's what it means. If it means I owe you something, you give me something, I have to pay you back? No, I don't want it. So giving became control for you. Giving became safety. Giving became your identity. The irony is when a giver is in shadow, partners often don't know how to meet them because the giver isn't expressing desire. They're managing it. The work here isn't stop giving. The work that I would invite you to look at is letting yourself be witnessed wanting. So an example of this is a partner, one of my experiences where a partner makes almost zero sound the entire time that we're having sex. And for me, It's very noticeable because I almost can't climax without making noise. um, so it's noticeable when my partner doesn't make any noise. And that's a way where it's like, I don't know how to meet that partner because I'm like, oh, are you enjoying it? Are you not? And it's almost like my partner wants to hide. They don't want me to witness them wanting or witness their pleasure. So again, I invite you to consider, let yourself be witnessed wanting, because you don't lose your magic when you receive. You actually deepen it. All right, now let's talk about the driver archetype. If you'll remember, the driver is the one who likes to drive the situation. They like to be in charge. There's like a good amount of maybe charisma, energy that's associated with this persona in the bedroom. The shadow of the driver is pressure. Drivers bring momentum. They initiate, they lead, they move things forward. But when driver energy slips into shadow, a couple things might happen. Speed oftentimes will replace attunement or alignment. Consent can become assumed, which isn't a good place to be. Connection becomes maybe more about performance. And slowing down, which is really interesting because, and I've witnessed this as well. If you identify, slowing down actually feels like losing control. Sometimes the shadow comes from learning that hesitation meant rejection or failure. If you hesitated, you failed, or someone would do it instead. They'd take over and do it first. Or it comes from, if you didn't move first, you'd be overlooked. That desire had to be claimed really quickly, or it just disappeared. So urgency became the form of protection. An unchecked driver energy can miss subtle cues if it's not utilized in awareness. It can overwhelm the partner. It can mistake compliance for desire. The driver shadow often isn't malicious. It's just anxious. The integration for the driver shadow is, it's not giving up leadership, because that's what turns you on. That's how you show up. But it's learning to pause and slow down without disappearing, because presence makes initiative powerful, but not force. Okay, next we have the explorer shadow. As a reminder, the explorers are those who show up as the adventurer. They're always looking for novelty and something new, a sense of newness or new experience. So the shadow of the explorer is avoidance through novelty. So they love novelty, but it becomes shadow if you start being avoidant and using the novelty to avoid. Explorers bring play, creativity, curiosity. They keep desire alive, for sure. But when the explorer is in shadow, novelty actually becomes the escape. The next idea replaces depth in the experience, and intensity sometimes will replace intimacy. If things slow down, if emotions surface, or maybe if vulnerability is required, the impulse is to reach for something new instead. This often develops when stillness felt unsafe for some reason, or when you grew up with a sense that anything deep or profound just felt too heavy, when staying meant being seen too clearly. So your movement became freedom. But here's the thing, exploration doesn't have to mean external newness. Sometimes, hear me out, the most unfamiliar territory is right inside of you. It's in the staying. It's in the softening. It's in being emotionally naked. Maybe that's where some novelty lies for you. And that's the novelty that should be explored. Or letting someone see you without distraction. The work for the explorer, if it's you, isn't less curiosity. It's curiosity about depth. Okay, the harmonizer shadow. If you remember, quick recap, the harmonizer is the one who you show up in these situations and you thrive on connection. You are turned on by an emotional intimacy or an aligned connection, not drama. Like you wouldn't understand most likely the angry fuck, which by the way, I don't understand. I'm partially a harmonizer for sure. Harmonizers need resonance, safety, emotional attunement, and alignment. But when this archetype operates from shadow, harmony becomes a prerequisite for desire. So if there's tension, sex stops. If there's conflict, desire disappears. If someone else is uncomfortable, the wants get silenced. This often comes from environments where emotional disruption felt really dangerous, or maybe it was dangerous when you were around emotional disruption. I've experienced that for sure. It comes from environments where peace is what kept you safe, where conflict meant withdrawal or abandonment. So harmony became survival. No one wants to feel abandoned or be abandoned. So this is where I would invite you to look. Intimacy doesn't require perfection. Connection doesn't require agreement. That's a hard one for me. Desire doesn't need emotional clarity to exist. The integration here is learning that you can want even when things aren't settled. And that doesn't make you unsafe. It makes you real. Now let's move on to the taker. If you remember, the taker is the one that loves to be given to or to receive. So you show up in rooms, and this is one of the ones that I relate to as well, where you show up and you, like an example could be a submissive, where you just want to be told what to do, or you want someone to give you pleasure. So that's the taker. The taker's shadow is shame around wanting. Takers thrive in receiving, like I just said, in being chosen and letting themselves be just devoured. But culturally, especially for women, wanting has often been framed as selfish or greedy or too much, as they say, taking up too much space. So the taker shadow oscillates between passivity. I'll just wait to be chosen. I'm not going to initiate, right? I'm going to wait till they're in the mood. So it oscillates between passivity and entitlement. Hey, I deserve this. I don't even have to give anything in return. It's just mine. And both are attempts to avoid the vulnerability of asking. Because asking risks hearing no. And receiving risks being seen. If I ask for something and they say no, I'm abandoned. If I ask for something and they say no, I can't handle that. And if they ask for something and say yes, then I'm seen. They see me wanting it. And both of those are attempts to avoid. So the taker shadow isn't about selfishness, though, even though that's the shadow side of it. You feel selfish. The taker shadow is about fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being too much, a fear of even needing. But if you have integrated taker energy, it understands that receiving invites generosity. It doesn't actually steal anything. There's abundance, plenty of generosity to go around. And receiving and giving are actually part of the same circuit. The final archetype we talked about was the shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter is the one where you see yourself almost equally in all of the archetypes. And you show up as all of them. And the shadow of the shapeshifter is losing your center. Shapeshifters are adaptive, fluid, responsive. They can meet a lot of different energies. But when this archetype slips into shadow, the desire becomes externalized instead of coming from yourself internally. What do you want? Well, whatever you want. Who should I be? Well, whoever you need. And over time, this can create confusion and dissatisfaction, a sense of being kind of unanchored. The other potential result of this shadow, losing your center, is where you feel like no partner can match you because you want it all and all at once. And there's an inability to connect with your partner on whatever level or platform they're presenting or being present with you on. And it still creates a sense of being unanchored. This may often come from environments where mirroring ensured belonging, where being flexible meant staying connected. Like the only way to stay connected was to be flexible to someone else. Or where having needs felt risky. So adaptability became the protection. The integration here isn't choosing one identity. Definitely don't limit who you are. But it's checking in with yourself before responding. Because fluidity can't exist without grounding. I can't know that the current has moved to a different spot if there is no spot that it was grounded in first. You have to have both the fluidity and the grounding, or it becomes a panicked floating into outer space. So those are all of our archetypes, and that's the discussion on the shadow side. If you happen to notice yourself in more than one shadow, that, my friend, is, well, I'll say it's normal. It's how I am. So I'm going to just say, I think I'm normal. Shadows shift with partners also, with seasons, with differing levels of safety. Shadows are not permanent, but they are very informative. And none of this means that, as we said, something is wrong with you. It means you learned strategies that really worked until maybe they didn't. So if you can be in a place to choose the strategies instead of just defaulting to them, you can choose the situations where they work and where they don't. Awareness is what gives you the option to choose differently. Not necessarily perfectly all the time, maybe not all at once, but choose consciously. So here's my invitation for you after this episode. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? Or asking what's wrong with my partner, that comes up a lot too. Try asking, what was this protecting? And instead of trying to fix your desire, try listening to it. Because when shadows are met with curiosity instead of shame, like we said at the beginning, they not only soften, but they actually become the key, the answer that we were looking for. And when they soften, desire can become playful again. In the next episodes, it feels a little bit like a school. I've been going through kind of this determined and defined curriculum, I guess, even though I don't know if I can call it a curriculum. It's just kind of something that I use as a guide. But again, I get so much out of this and so much interpretation, and I've grown so much in my sexuality in a super short period of time by being in touch with some of these archetypes and this vocabulary. So I hope it's keeping your interest and it's something that is beneficial and helpful for you as you kind of are getting to know yourself maybe a little bit better, or getting to know some partners better, or trying new things. So in the next episodes, we'll turn toward the arousal archetypes. So completely different set of archetypes. That's what actually flips your ignition switch. And then we'll talk about their shadows too. Then we're going to talk about how you can connect and figure out the attachment and the connections between your eroticism and your arousal, which can make things even deeper and more layered. Because how you show up and what turns you on are speaking different languages. And if you learn both, it gives you fluency. Thanks as always for being here. Really enjoy spending some time with you here in the lounge, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for being here. Tip the lounge or grab your free journal while it lasts at whisperlounge.club.